Good evening, Facebook. Today is December 23rd, 2019. And many of you have asked me by email to address the question as to whether or not the Virginia General Assembly has the right to ban firearms at what is called Lobby Day on January 20th of 2020. So let me walk down a little bit about that and give you the legal answer as best as I can about what they can do and about what they can't do. First off, there is a bill before the General Assembly that has been lodged that makes it illegal, punishment up to a year in jail and a $2,500 fine for bringing firearms into the Capitol Square and into the government buildings. Now, that bill isn't law, and that's just been proposed. That bill has been proposed multiple times by the Democrats over the years and has failed, but maybe it'll get some traction this year. However, if that bill were to pass, it generally doesn't take effect till July 1. Now, what they can do is they are in control of their grounds, and they can create rules related to their facilities. Just like, for instance, that if you go to a courthouse may say you can't bring a cell phone into the building because they can control their environment. And so through a rule change that would be adopted by the House and the Senate, I do think that legally they could make the Capitol grounds a gun-free zone. Now, I don't know that they could make that into a criminal punishment if you were to bring a firearm, but it could be basically kind of like a gun-free zone, no different than like what the mall would be, to where if you go to the mall and it's a gun-free zone and you are caught at the mall with a gun, they could ask you to leave. And then if you refuse to leave, then that could become trespass, and then you could get criminally charged for trespass. So I do think that they would have the authority to declare the Capitol grounds and the Capitol building a gun-free zone if they wanted to, and that would be their sole prerogative, and there would be nothing illegal about that whatsoever. But I do think it would probably be more in line with what the malls have done with making gun-free zones. So, again, it's not a crime to bring a gun to a mall. Basically, if they catch you, they can ask you to leave, and they can even bar you from the property from returning if they would like. And if you don't leave, then you could be arrested for criminal trespass. And so I think that they could probably do that, and I think they probably are going to do that. I think that that is likely. Now, I know many of you have a lot of anxiety, like they're probably retaliating against people because now they're in control. But let me tell you this. Let's walk down the little bit of memory lane here for a minute of how we've got ourselves here. So last year, May 31st, shooting in Virginia Beach. Okay, Governor Northam then says, I want to have a special gun session in the Virginia legislature. So everybody reconvenes in the summertime. And when that happens, a lot of people come to basically kind of like another lobby day where they want to come and they want to talk to their delegates, and there's lots of people in line and so forth. Well, what happened on that particular day is, and in that time period is a militia showed up, camouflage wearing, fatigue wearing militia with long guns, most of them as people have called assault weapons, so probably like AR-15s, things like that. They were armed and they were organized and they were operating crowd control. Now, they had no legal authority to do that. They weren't asked to do that. They just showed up. And it caused a lot of heartburn. Now, this wasn't really reported much in the media, but it caused a lot of heartburn that these guys were there providing basically police security services at the Capitol. They weren't under the jurisdiction of any police department. They weren't under the jurisdiction of any law enforcement agency. They were just there to provide crowd control. Now, because of that, Delegate Herring, who is now going to be our Attorney General, wrote a letter to the Attorney General, and I've published the Attorney General's letter here, about whether that would be illegal to do under Virginia law. Now, the question is that if some type of a militia shows up, is that a violation of basically impersonating a police officer or assuming a police officer's duties without control? There's a code section about that in Virginia, 18.2-174. Basically says it's a crime to falsely assume or exercise the functions, powers, and duties of the sheriffs or police officers, or pretending to be that kind of law enforcement. And that's what they were doing. I don't care if you're pro-amendment, pro-Second Amendment, anti-Second Amendment. That's what these guys did, and it caused a big problem with a lot of people. They were not authorized to perform police functions. And so the Attorney General correctly, in my opinion, wrote an opinion that type of activity was unlawful. The militia can't just show up and act as an independent force. And in fact, the Virginia Constitution, Article 1, Section 13, very clearly says this about the militias. I'm going to show you this so that you can see it for yourself. Maybe you've never seen this particular part, but this is basically the state's Second Amendment right here, okay? And basically, you can read it right here, but the very last sentence, and it says this, and that in all cases, the military should be under strict subordination to and governed by the civilian power, okay? So what does that basically mean? And I've said this before on my militia video, if you want to watch this, is if the militia is completely controlled, excuse me, let me get this camera resituated here, by the governor. And that's just bottom line how it works in Virginia. The governor has the full authority to control how militias are organized. So the largest militia we have in Virginia is the National Guard. And then below that, we have something called the Virginia Defense Force, and they kind of fill in for the National Guard when they get federalized. And then below that is the unorganized militia. And so if you're part of the unorganized militia, you are still under control of the governor, the civilian executive, which in our state is the governor. And so these guys did nobody any favors by coming out and causing all this this trouble, and has basically energized the Democrats to do that, to do what they're doing. And now we have this opinion from the Attorney General, which says that those kinds of situations are illegal under Virginia law, which I think that's probably true. And, this goes even further back to the Unite the Right rally, where, there was, this is where this paramilitary bill, I think it's Senate Bill 64 is coming from. And so he addresses all of that. So essentially what we have in Virginia is this, and again, this is what I'm worried about with Lobby Day, and I've said this publicly. You basically get certain people who think that they are the militia, okay? They're not under anybody's control. They're not under anybody's direction, organization, and they go out there and they cause trouble, and that trouble affects all of us. And now we're probably going to join the rest of the country to where we can't bring firearms to the Capitol, where Virginia has proudly allowed this to happen. Only a handful of states let that happen, but because these guys did this last year, it's going to be taken away from all of us. And that's what's going to happen. And they have every right to do it. Most states, you're not allowed to bring a gun to the Capitol building. I mean, you certainly can't bring a gun to the governor's mansion. You can't bring a gun into the Virginia Supreme Court. So, they're going to take it away, and we're going to lose that right because of where it started. It started with the Unite the Right issues. And then it started and it followed through to the gun lobby day with these militia guys running around acting like crowd control. And there'll probably be more this year. And I hope they're arrested. They're not the police. They have no authority whatsoever to be out there acting like the police. The police are there. The police have the state police, the sheriffs, the locals. They're there to provide crowd control. They are not, these local militia guys are not there. So that is where we are. Is it going to happen? In my opinion, if I was a betting man, I would say probably 90% chance it's going to be declared a gun-free zone. And I think that the bill's probably going to pass that's going to make it a permanent criminal offense to bring a firearm there. I think that's going to happen. And we can just walk down history of how we've gotten here. So for those of you out there, the militia, thanks for that one. That was no help to us whatsoever. And if you're going to go to gun lobby day, and these are gun-free zones, you're gonna make it worse. You're just gonna make it worse on all of us. We should be able to peacefully be armed like we have been. We should be peacefully be able to have that concealed or open carry, but we don't need to be walking around with long gun rifles. The VCDL doesn't want that. I certainly don't want that, and we're probably not going to be able to have any guns now because of all of this. But that's where we are. And so my answer to your questions are: one, yes, I think they're going to do it. I think they can legally do it. I think it's going to be similar to what a mall gun-free zone looks like. Two, I think that bill's probably going to get traction this year and probably pass, and it'll probably become a criminal offense moving forward after July 1st. And three, if you want to know how we got here, read the Attorney General opinion, and it explains where we are, where these militia guys have acted like law enforcement, and the Democrats are sick of it, and that's where we are. So I hope that answers your questions. And again, I'm not certainly talking to you, the local person who owns a gun who's lawfully concealed carry at these events. I'm talking to the guys who thought that they were so cool and could be the cops. You didn't do us any favors, and you're not going to do us any favors if you think you're going to do it again this year. All right, Facebook, I hope that helps. Merry Christmas to everybody. I will probably leave you alone on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and I'll see you next on the other side of Christmas. Hug your families, and we'll see you next few days. Bye-bye.